Let's go ahead and call this meeting together to order of the House Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications Committee. Appreciate everybody coming, members and the public. I think this can be a fairly, we can get this over with pretty quickly. I will announce this, we had a bill that would have come here, would have been here from subcommittee, and the author has asked us to hold that and not take it up today. So what we have is a presentation from Chris Anderson, Senior Program Manager, Energy Resources Division of GFA. So, and Shane Hicks, Director of Public Affairs and IT, Georgia Environmental Finance Authority, GFA. So with that, we appreciate y'all coming very much, and if you could go ahead and proceed.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for having us today. Like I said, I'm Shane Hicks with the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority, and this is Chris Anderson with our Energy Resources Division. Just wanted to very quickly give you a little bit of overview of the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority, especially provide some context for the presentation on performance contracting. So GFA helps promote economic development, we help improve Georgia's environment, and we help protect natural resources. We do that primarily by managing energy efficiency and renewable energy programs. We manage and monitor all of the state-owned fuel storage tanks that are at state facilities, state parks around the state. And we're probably most known for our Water Resources Division that provides loans for water, wastewater, stormwater, solid waste infrastructure to local governments at very low interest rates, and saves our communities quite a bit of money over the life of those loans. And we're funded through a combination of state and federal funds. Our Energy Resources Division, sometimes referred to as the State Energy Office, manages several programs, including the State Energy Program and the Weatherization Assistance Program, both of which receive funding through the U.S. Department of Energy. The State Energy Program provides financial assistance to energy efficiency and renewable energy programs at projects primarily to local governments in the state, and the Weatherization Program provides free energy conservation measures to low-income households in all of Georgia's counties. So Chris specifically leads our Energy Assurance Program. They work with the Georgia Emergency Management Agency during inclement weather, other natural or man-made disasters, to manage our response on electricity and fuel supplies in the state. And now we're to the Performance Contracting Program, which has been in place since just after 2010 when a constitutional amendment was passed to allow the state to do this, and Chris manages the program for us, so I'll turn it over to him.
All right. Thank you for having us here today. Again, my name is Chris Anderson, and I'm here this afternoon to give an update on Georgia's Guaranteed Energy Savings Performance Contracting Program. I will start with a brief high-level overview of what Guaranteed Energy Savings Performance Contracts are. GESPCs, as we call them, are contracts with energy service providers, or sometimes as we call them, ESCOs, to implement energy and water conservation measures, or ECMs, at agency facilities. You can think of them as a type of design-build contract, where the ESP designs and builds the efficiency improvements. However, with GESPCs, the ESP guarantees that the energy savings will meet an agreed-upon level. The agreed-upon level of savings is based on the investment-grade audit that the ESP conducts prior to starting any construction. In the Georgia program, savings must be guaranteed to meet or exceed the cost of all payments, including financing costs, measurement and verification, maintenance, training, and any other cost that's associated with the administration of the contract. Excess savings in one year may not be rolled forward to the next year to meet a shortfall. This is a foundational element that makes GESPCs what they are. The projects may be financed over a multi-year period up to about 20 years. 20 years is the legal limit within Georgia. Typically, we see projects financed over a period of about 7 to 15 years, maybe up to 17 years. The projects are usually financed through third-party lenders but we've also used GO bonds in the past to fund them as well. The state program is authorized by the Guaranteed Energy Savings Performance Contracting Act, which was authorized, as Shane said, via constitutional amendment back in November of 2010. Prior to the act, state agencies could not finance this kind of work over multiple years. Next, I would like to take a moment to speak about GFA's role within performance contracting. GFA is established as the state's GESPC program manager by statute. We were tasked with creating the program requirements for state agencies, and it is important to note that we do not have any authority over local government or K-12 contracts within the state of Georgia. GFA reviews project applications from state agencies, works with OPB and GISVIC to set the contract value, which is the maximum dollar value of a contract that a state agency can enter into in any given year. GFA also develops standard program procedures, including the procurement process, a pre-qualified list of ESBs, contract templates, and manuals. All state agencies that enter into a GSPC must follow GFA's process and use approved contract templates, which are approved by the State Department of Law. These documents are also resources that local governments are able to use, although they are not required to use these documents or our procedures. GFA also provides technical assistance, including a third-party engineer review if needed on the project during the audit phase and prior to execution of the contract. We often do that just to have an extra independent set of eyes on the project so that we know that it meets the needs of the agency and that all of the technical assumptions within the project are sound. Prior to a contract being executed, the executive director of GFA is required to issue a final approval on the contract as well. In addition to this, GFA collects annual reports on existing projects and submits an annual report to GISVIC. The list that you'll see on the screen now is our list of pre-qualified ESBs. Many are large companies that you've heard of, although some of them are also smaller companies that focus primarily on performance contracting and niche energy services. We have an open RFQ on the Georgia Procurement Registry, and companies may apply to be on the list at any time. The list resets every 3 years, and companies must reapply. We score the companies on a range of categories, including ESB history and stability, experience, and track record. State agencies must use an ESB from this list. Local governments and K-12 are not required to use this list, although they are certainly welcome to. I want to include a list of our current projects. These are all projects that have been executed with state agencies. On the list that you can see the agency that the contract is with, the ESB that performed the work, the lender for the project, the term of the agreement, the total value of the contract, and the realized versus guaranteed savings for the most recent year. All of our projects thus far have met or exceed the guaranteed savings. Each year, the ESP must perform in-depth measurement and verification to determine if the guaranteed savings are met. The agency will also closely review this data and has the responsibility of signing off on the reported data. Should there be a shortfall, which we have not experienced yet, the ESP must pay the difference to the agency. As you can see, we have a range of projects at a range of agencies all across the state, six different agencies in total. A couple have multiple projects, including Department of Corrections and Georgia Tech. 6 different ESPs from our pre-qualified list have entered into these agreements with the agencies, as well as 3 different lenders that you can see on the list. Wanted to also take a minute just to highlight what we're doing currently. Currently, we have a project with Georgia Tech and the ESCO ABM under construction. That project deal was executed back in June of this past year. Construction on that project will wrap up later this year. That project is in 2 laboratory buildings on campus and will result in much more efficient laboratory exhaust systems and better air quality within the labs. We also have 1 project in the procurement stage with Augusta University. They've selected ABM to be their ESCO for the audit. They are currently in the process of the audit. They hope to have that project executed this summer in June, and then construction will start the next fiscal year. Currently, we are looking for any applications from state agencies that are interested in pursuing a project for the upcoming fiscal year. We'll be taking those through March. Once we get those applications, we then work with GISVIC and OPB to determine which of those projects might be able to go forward. Of course, we have to get contract value authority from GISVIC, so assuming any of those projects can move forward with their approval, we'll go to that meeting at the start of the summer for FY21 approval. We are also, of course, working actively to share our positive program savings. We included that in this fall's Georgia Energy Report, and there will be other updates throughout the year, including potential case studies on some of these projects. So we're always happy to share the data. I know some of our pre-qualified ESCOs that have entered into these agreements with the state agencies are also out there working to get this story out. So we're proud of the success so far of the program, and with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I had become interested in hearing from y'all. There was something that came out, I guess it was your report, the annual update. I can't think what it's called now that y'all send out. And here again, just looking through it, it appeared, I mean, just looking at that report or the what you had there, it appeared there wasn't that many departments actually taking advantage of this. That's what kind of I wanted to hear a report. I know we have a question, and I always try to make sure the members ask first. Who over here had a question? Representative Frazier.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe this is for Mr. Anderson. You or Mr. Nix, one of you all. Years ago, there was money allocated from federal dollars and state dollars for weatherization. And you mentioned that. I took advantage of that in my area in Augusta and Burke County for a lot of my seniors and homeowners that needed their homes updated. And that was an excellent program. Now, is there monies for that anymore? Because I have not heard about any funding available for weatherization. And also, what is the threshold, the income that you have to be to qualify for that?
So the weatherization program is funded annually by the federal government, so GIFA receives an annual allocation, and then we have service providers around the state that actually implement the program and do the work, the audits, and all the repairs. And there's also quite a bit of health and safety work that goes on with those homes as well, so it's both energy and health and safety. So yes, and I'm not exactly certain of the income qualification. I believe it's 150% of the federal poverty level, but it might be as high as 200%. So I'm happy to confirm that, and I'll get back to you on the actual figure.
Okay, so you're telling me y'all have already spent the money for this year?
The money goes out to the agencies. There is quite a long waiting list with most of the agencies, so that's one of the issues we do see quite a bit when customers and folks call our office about the program. Is trying to set the expectations that there is a waiting list, and the agencies don't have enough money to meet all of the need, but they do work through that waiting list as quickly as they can.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other question. Representative Jones.
Thank you. I'm looking at some of your current pre-qualified energy service providers. Some of them I worked with before when I was at the county, AECOM and Honeywell and some others, Johnson Control. How do you, is this the total number that's been pre-qualified? And if anyone with a business providing those services, is there a process that they go through to become part of this service provider team? Because if you're not pre-qualified, you can't get access to this work.
Correct. This list is for state agencies only, so local governments in K through 12 can use other providers if they'd like, but this is for state agencies. We have an open RFQ on the state procurement registry currently. It is for a 3-year period, but it's open at any time. So the current list RFQ is open through March of 2021. Any company is welcome to apply through us to get on the list. Starting in March 2021, we will start the new process for a new 3-year period. But any company is welcome to go out and get that RFQ. You can contact us, and we can send it to you, or it's on the registry. If you meet the minimum qualifications, you can apply to us, and we score it. And as long as it meets that threshold, I think on the RFQ, we'll put you on the list.
And it's updated every 3 years, and so these that are already pre-qualified, do they go through another pre-qualification each
Yes.
time, each process?
Each company on this list will have to reapply next winter, a year from
Okay.
now.
And what about small businesses, Georgia businesses, teaming arrangements? Because these are big boys.
Mhm.
How do the small businesses in Georgia fare? I don't really see any.
Right. You're correct. There really are no small businesses on this list. One of the requirements that we have that's often a hurdle for smaller companies is that we require them to have at least 10 projects, guaranteed energy savings projects that are fully guaranteed, that have at least 1 year of repayment history. That obviously kind of cuts out someone that's totally new to the business. We also want to make sure that the company has enough of financial backing, enough of a financial track record, so that if 1 year they do not meet the guarantee, that we are confident that they'll have the financial resources to pay the difference for the project. There are opportunities, I think, for smaller businesses to partner with some of these larger ones as a way of getting part of the work. A number of these companies don't do all of the work themselves. They sub some of it out, various parts, whether it's the investment grade audit, some of the engineering work, or the construction of the actual measures. But I think that's probably the best way for a very small business who hasn't done those 10 projects to be part of the list.
Mr. Chair, can I ask just a couple more? Having run a procurement department and knowing how sometimes projects can be bundled and such that it literally does eliminate smaller businesses who can perform a lot of the work, and sometimes the criteria is such that it almost, it pushes them out. And unless you have it as a part of your objectives and goals to establish those teaming arrangements. I don't know if you do what I call pre-bid meetings and they all come to the table, but are you encouraging them to forge those small businesses arrangements and partnerships? Because if you don't, it's almost like they can say, oh yeah, we're working with some subs, but working with some subs and working with some small businesses when they submit and they are part of the original contract that they present in terms of, here are the small businesses I'm working with, because many times they don't even include them. They just say, okay, we can bid on the project, which is fine, but it just provides an environment where good small businesses who can do the work, and I'm just glancing about 80-something, close to $90 million worth of projects here. Mm-hmm. And when you look at one company on here has almost half of those, Johnson Controls, and I just promote Georgia small businesses is all I'm saying. And so, and with that being said, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your time. I just wanted to get into that.
Okay.
We will be putting it out again next winter, and prior to that, I'd be happy to have any conversations about how we can incorporate some of those comments and concerns.
I wanted to ask, just trying to figure this out. You've got the, let's see, if I'm looking at the right thing here now, but I lost it. The savings, what do they base the savings on, say, after the first year? Okay, one of these companies have gone in, and I mean, they're making changes somehow to have savings, not spend as much money. But when we have this thing here, realized savings, like for the Department of Corrections, it's a lot more than that. Over $2 million, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
What do they? After the second, third year, what do they base it? How do they know what the actual cost would have been if they weren't there?
Right. So, leading up to the execution of the contract and the start of construction, they go through a really rigorous what we call investment grade audit process.
Yeah.
And that's led by the ESCO, but participated in by the agency and oftentimes a third-party independent engineer. They will set a baseline for where energy savings or energy currently is being used, how
Yeah.
much, and where in the facilities. They often always build in a escalation into the utility rates. They use what standard engineering procedures. There's a couple of them out there that are used for measurement and verification. Most commonly, we see IPMVP, the International Protocol for Measurement and Verification. That's the standard one that we follow. There's also ASHRAE has guidelines as well. Within the contract, the audit and the contract, all of it's spelled out for what exactly the ESCO or energy service provider is going to do each year to go and measure the savings.
Yeah.
Then the company does go and do that each year. The agency has to sign off on that report. So, it is somewhat up to the agency. They have to be aware of what's going on in their facilities. If there are changes in the facilities, there are ways of handling that are spelled out within the contract, say increased capacity within an academic building, changes of use within an academic building.
Yeah.
Then they have to go and readjust the baseline. It's a process.
Yeah.
But the agency really needs to be there along with them.
You just kind of wonder how, how, I mean, if I were one of these, I would always try to make that look as good as possible. And there's nothing really that you can prove that it seems to me there's no real proof that you actually saved that much money. But I did want to ask you, I think it's a good thing. I think it may have been even a co-sponsor of the bill when originally, it's a good thing, absolutely. But but for example, one kind of concerns me, Department of Corrections, that's the one I just mentioned, the amount of savings. It just seems to me like, it kind of concerns me because it seems like a Department of Corrections, you basically have a very controlled situation there. And, if you, common sense, if you turn the thermostat, if you make it warmer in the summertime for the prisoners and you make it a little bit colder in the wintertime, which they can't do a thing about, you've saved a bunch of money. And I'm just wondering, like in the Department of Corrections, how big what did they really need somebody like that to go in and do that? You've got people in cell, and you turn you control the thermostat. That doesn't seem like in the Department of Corrections there'd be that much more that you have to control.
There's some of that. You can control set points, and there are standards of quality within the contract of where they're going to set their heating in the winter and their cooling in the summer. A lot of what corrections has done are HVAC improvements within the prisons. Prisons use a lot of water, so a lot of water savings measures at some of the prisons that are on municipal water supplies.
Yeah.
Laundry facilities, kitchen facilities, a lot of those have been replaced to reduce electricity or natural gas consumption.
Yeah.
But of course, some of it can be as simple as just optimizing set points.
I appreciate it. It's just something that concerns me. For example, of course, we also review telecommunications, and regardless of what an inmate is in there for or whatever, it still has to be some degree of humanity. And they really, when it comes to telecommunications, visits from families and things like that, there's some real, what I consider to be hardships for inmates. As far as talking to people outside, they can't just pick up. It's very controlled how they can even make a call to people outside. And as far as anybody calling them, it's impossible. And a lot of these, the people can't even visit. They have to visit through a television monitor. And I'm thinking in terms of this, if you're an inmate and all of a sudden it gets uncomfortably warm or uncomfortably cold, and there's nothing in the world, not only nothing in the world you could do about it, but the Department of Corrections would just have to come back. We can't control this because this is done through a contract. That's the way everything. That's the answer for almost everything anymore. I think it's a great thing. I do overall, but I just have, I saw that Department of Corrections, and that just kind of raised some questions with me. How, and then as far as what is the projected or what they consider to be the realized savings in any of these, I just wonder how close they really are as far as the. But you're right. There's things other than turning the thermostat. There's things improving the the equipment and all those things that can be done. But I did want to ask you too. I think there's another question here, but I did want to ask you about. You had said that it only relates to state agencies as far as the list of contractors. Is that right?
Correct.
But if you do a contract, if GFA gets money through bonds or whatever for a K through 12, though, they can choose whatever contractor they want to. Is that what you said?
Well, we would not provide funding for a, we don't provide funding for any of the projects. They're funded via third-party lenders.
Okay.
When it comes to local government in K through 12, we can provide a limited amount of technical assistance to them. You know, we're happy to answer questions, to even meet with them if it's possible, kind of walk them through the procurement process and how these things work.
Okay.
But we don't have authority over how they choose to go about to do their project or
Okay.
who they choose to do it with.
Okay. I know somebody else got a question. But I do want to ask you before I kind of hang up here. I mean, do you consider it is it a successful program? I mean, looking at the list of agencies, I'm just wondering, do you consider it to be a could we go further with it? I mean, do there need to be more agencies that are using it, or what do you think?
I think it's successful. All of these projects are as far as we can tell in the feedback that we're getting directly from our agencies, that they're meeting their goals and they're meeting their savings targets. They're able oftentimes to get more work done than they'd otherwise be able to get within their facilities, so it's an added value to them. I think there's always more opportunity within some of our facilities around the state. One of the hurdles is it has to be a large enough facility or agency.
Right. Okay.
Typically, these companies don't want to do projects that aren't worth more than at least about $1 million, $2 million. So that can be a hurdle for really small agencies. But there are, it's not for everybody. There's pros and cons to it. There's some risks, of course. But certainly within universities, corrections, those larger agencies, there's more facilities out there.
All right, Chairman Workheiser, you had a question.
Thank you, Chairman. At one of our most recent rural development councils, we spoke with GFA, and this would require a constitutional amendment, but we mentioned that, and it would answer the chairman's question about expanding the scope, about getting into the financing of if municipalities want to get into broadband infrastructure. Since that was a first-time conversation, have y'all had any discussions, or is there an appetite for that? Because constitutional amendment would be a big step.
Yeah, we have, we participated in the RDC process and have been part of those discussions really from the beginning. We see our role, and we've even talked internally about financing energy projects for local governments like this, and so broadband would be a very similar proposal. And really, we're, as a state agency, we kind of take our lead from the governor and the legislature. So, but we're working closely, and we've worked closely with the Rural Development Council on, how GFA could possibly do that, and what we would need, both from a constitutional amendment standpoint and statutorily, to be able to support those initiatives if the governor and legislature would like us to do that.
There you go. Just to follow up on Chairman Workheiser, so you have not done anything specific work with anyone on possible legislation since that Rural Development Council meeting as far as broadband?
No.
Or you have not approached the governor's office about the possibility of their support for doing that?
We've had the discussions with the governor's office.
But have not gotten an answer?
We have not. I don't know if I can answer whether we've heard back from an answer, because I can't speak for our executive director who works most closely with the governor's office. But we've been part of the discussions on broadband, both through the RDC and otherwise. So, and we look forward to continuing that dialogue as the process moves
Well, I
forward.
think it would be some good legislation, in my opinion, to help push that along and for some local governments. So, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I did want to. Is there another question? Oh, yeah. Okay, Representative Jones.
I want to piggyback on something you said that was so important earlier, but just before that, I think right now, you guys help me if I'm incorrect, local governments can piggyback off your existing contracts with the state and they don't have to put it out at for an RFP at the local level. Is that because I remember we used to, if anyone, let's say for example, we were buying cars for the police department. If the state has an approved vendor for police department, for cars, then local governments would not have to put that out for an RFP. They can just tag right along with the state's contract. Is that the same process with this? If a local government wanted to do a performance improvement at the local level, can they just go right from your existing list and pull from one of those and not have to do an RFP?
Within performance contracting, we still do an RFP. The RFP is just targeted only to the ESCOs on this list, on our pre-qualified list.
So that's what I'm saying. So ACOM is on this list, and we wanted to hire ACOM to do the same type of performance improvements at a local level. Normally, I thought, at least it used to be that way, that we can piggyback off an existing state contract. In other words, we can go directly to that company and negotiate with them on prices. Does that work in this instance with these performances?
Well, for this, a state agency is required to put out the RFP to all of the pre-qualified ESCOs,
Right.
and then they all get the opportunity to submit a proposal. For local governments, they're welcome to use our pre-qualified list. My understanding of the legislation is it encourages them to seek bids from at least 2 ESCOs before they do the work.
Okay.
But again, we are not directly involved with local governments, so we know they're out there doing projects, but I can't speak to how exactly they're procuring all of their individual projects.
All right, and I wanted to go back what the chairman was talking about. You know, if I come to your house, Mr. Chairman, and I say to you, I can reduce your light bill by certain things. One, I'm gonna come in there, and I think I'm just gonna not turn the lights on. So you'll be in half the time you'll be in the darkness. The other half you'll be in the light, but your light bill will go down. What they're supposed to do is to come in, not we're going to turn the heater down, we're going to turn the heat up in this time, but they're supposed to come in, if they can improve these lights with a different type of lighting that still gives you light but burns less less energy, then that's measurable, because you can look at what the light bill is over the last 3, 4, 5 months to a year, and after they come in and make improvements, you're supposed to be able to see, okay, how did my energy bill, light bill go down, or did it stay the same? Because if it stayed the same, you didn't save us any money. Or water. Are there leaks identified? You didn't know there were leaks. They tracked and found some leaks, or did they start to replace all the toilets with low flow fixtures, so where they were flushing 2 gallons, now they can flush with 1 gallon? Well, you can see a reduction in the water use. What I don't see when they say they saved us money, there are some measurables. So show us, was there a reduction? If you change out the lights, show me a reduction in the bills last year versus this year, year to date. Water, if our water bill was this amount, what is it now? And so there are some measurables to see if they're really saving. And then you ask yourself too, a lot of times when they bid, the initial bid, and you agree to, they can come back with change orders. So how many change orders were reflected in here? Could be some change orders where, I know we said we can do it for $2 million, but I think now we didn't know this when we gave you the bid. You have some additional stuff over here that we had to get into, so we're gonna have to come back with a change order. A lot of times we don't hear anything about those change orders, but they go through to somebody to approve those change orders. And so I think to really, not that we're questioning anybody's integrity, but what really would help us when he asks about these savings, it looks good on paper, it sounds good, but where do we actually get the savings from? Was it from the utility? Was it from the water? Did we close off part of the building? We no longer provide heat or air to that building? Where are the savings? So I think those are measurables, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, some of them are directly measurable. Like you said, lighting, plumbing fixtures, those are often very directly measurable. Some of it's calculated within building model complex, computerized building models. Some of it is more bill analysis and that kind of thing.
A lot of it's analysis based on their formula. They say, well, we believe based on this formula that they put in, they
Sure.
put the numbers in, we just save you some money.
Mhm.
Well, how do we know that that's your formula? We didn't come up with the formula. We just trusting that they're coming up with a formula that's really capturing something. So I'm not questioning anybody, but when you said that, we do have to start to hold them accountable or make sure that they are giving us some things that's tangible that we can see that savings. But it works now. Let me tell you, performance improvements, it actually works, because you can come and update a system, but that's anything you update, old technologies or new technologies, cheaper, you know, and more efficient.
Thank you, Representative. I thought you were asking me a question. I was gonna say, are you gonna say, is it not true? And I was gonna say, I'm sure the gentleman knows that of which he speaks.
I was agreeing with you. I was just agreeing with you. Just a footnote to your
Thank you.
point.
I appreciate it. Is there another question? I don't think so. Thank you all very, very much. I do appreciate what you're doing. I think this is a very good program. I just had questions about it, and that's exactly what we're here for. So thank you very much.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you. And with that, let's see. Oh, and to the members of the committee, you have a packet that has some information in there on the energy mix with the various providers in the state, which you might find interesting. And you might want to take a look at that. Some really good information that shows how much renewables we're up to, how much nuclear is used by each of the providers. I think it also has broken down by the mix and the capacity. So I think it's something that should be of interest. It's part of what we are supposed to be looking at and doing. So thank you all. If there are no questions or comments, we are adjourned. Thank you.